Hi there, Cancer. Welcome to your June 2018 love reading. Rena here. Okay. The heart of the matter is the Fool card, and so this is a totally new direction in your life. Maybe just wanting to be more of a nonconformist. In other words, not necessarily wanting to do what you've done in the past. And I think that a lot of this is happening for the cardinal signs, and maybe you especially, Cancer, because you have Capricorn as your opposing sign. And well, I'm not going to get into the other planets, but we'll just talk about Pluto, which is this very slow-moving energy, very transformative, but bringing up the shadow, okay? And what happens when you're dealing with this influence of Pluto opposing your sun, because that's kind of like what these readings are mostly intended for, just on the tarot side of things, is just the sun sign. So looking at it from that perspective, there can be a lot that you see. It's almost like seeing it from a distance about your true nature, and that can bring up a lot of questions. So I would say overall that a lot of Cancer people tend to be rather traditional, and they go along a certain route. But all of us as human beings who are actually spiritual beings having a human experience are going to question ourselves at some point if we are awake enough. So it really doesn't matter what sign you are. You're still going to at some point find the need to question what it is that you're doing. This could be due to marital problems, to middle age is a big one. That's a big trigger, because a lot of times in middle age, people find that they have this slowdown, that they sense their mortality. There may be important deaths that are happening, and that can really get us to question our path. So with the Fool card, this could be saying just about anything about your period of time right now, Cancer. You may be someone who is wanting to totally move someplace else far away, which is very unlike a Cancer person. Usually Cancers are very bound to their homeland, their where they have grown up, like their hometown, or at least the general vicinity. And so you may just be having these uncharacteristic desires to do something, to just go off in an unknown direction. And it could relate to your love life, especially if you've been in a very long-term relationship. And I think it's wonderful. Even when people are a little bit off kilter, sometimes people are doing things because they really are confused. I still think that trying to find yourself is better than just becoming, a zombie. So if you feel like this need to travel, or this need to at least strike out in a completely new direction, then I, commend you. And let's see let's see possible reason behind this, we have the Eight of Wands. And this can indicate some contact with a person who inspires you. And now I'm assuming this might be a romantic interest, possibly also a fire sign, since this is Wands, Leo, Aries. That's always a good bet, and or Sagittarius. But regardless of sign, this person is, I don't know, kind of lighting a fire within you that gets you to think expansively. And you may be back and forth with that person making plans. There may be a lot of haste where you're just like throwing caution to the wind and you don't care. And this is like totally, as I say, uncharacteristic of you, but you don't care. Now, what is creating the conflict, or maybe stopping this from happening, because these are actually wonderful cards of possible new beginnings and possible like revitalization in your life, Cancer. But what's stopping you is something to do with conflict. So it could be that, let's say you're getting divorced and you're still duking it out. You're still in that sense of battle. Something is happening that is keeping you from feeling like you can truly make happen what you want to happen. It can be that if you're interested in someone, they are not being monogamous. And it might not be anything nefarious. It might be that you just met this person several months ago and they're not ready to settle down. Now, if they are a fire sign, that will be even more likely the case, because fire signs tend to like their freedom. And this is where a Cancer person may find themselves clashing with this type of person, because you're kind of more of a domestic goddess or god, and you are much more kind of like you're kind of like a homebody type of person, even if you have a career. So you may feel frustrated if you're with somebody who is interested in new experiences all the time, who always wants to travel and always wants to be out in the world, out and about in the world. That person may, get you going in certain ways, but ultimately may not be the person that you're most compatible with. But that's okay, because it's all about learning what we like and what we don't like in life. And there's no reason why you can't explore, especially if you are free. The Fool card suggests somebody that is basically starting over again. And I will say too that the Five of Wands could indicate that you have certain things that you like about this person, but perhaps you don't get along in other respects. And that could also indicate that the thing that you have going with this person is primarily physical, and you really don't have much in common with that person outside of that area. And as long as you are aware of that and you don't try to make more of it than it is, then that's fine too. You just like take it for what it is. But that's very hard for a Cancer person to do, because you usually bring your emotions into a situation, and it's just, So anyway, the spiritual message is represented by the Temperance card, and this is associated with Sagittarius, which was one of the fire signs that I just mentioned. So as a spiritual message, it may be saying that that person has something to teach you. I'm not saying that it's necessarily your soulmate, but they might have something to teach you. And even if it's like a negative thing, it still is something that maybe it's helpful for you to learn. Also, if you look at this individual, I guess you'd call him an angel, the angel has one foot in the water and one foot on land. What's interesting about this is that we think of angels as celestial beings, and that they wouldn't have a foot on land because they are spiritually, they're from the spiritual dimension. But all of us who are balanced in life, or who want to be balanced, have to allow the spiritual to coincide with the what we'd call the worldly or the grounded perspective. And so in terms of a romantic relationship, you may have the worldly parts really nailed down. You may get along with this person in practical ways. But in terms of your spiritual connection to this person, you have to make sure that that's also there as well. Again, I'm talking about for the long haul. Because with the Fool as the focus, you may be just in a phase or a frame of mind, Cancer, where you're just going to play the field, or at least just be by yourself, exploring, getting to know people, and not wanting to necessarily settle down. I also want to say that some of these cards connect with possible drinking problems. So I have mentioned this recently in videos, because I had read about it actually as part of the interpretations. And I thought to myself, this is a very important angle. And I don't, so I've kind of like started to mention it when, especially if there's several cards, because temperance means, not having addictive tendencies, being balanced. And the Page of Cups is connected to Pisces, and that can be possibly connected to drinking, and so can, as I recall. But definitely the Five of Cups, which can be somebody who is sad and maybe using alcohol to soothe themselves. And the reason that it's so important is because there are times when a person has a wonderful relationship, and the big problem that they have with that person is that person's addiction. And it doesn't have to be just drinking, obviously. It can be anything that keeps the two people from communicating on the same wavelength. So that's where I'm going with that, because it does affect relationships. I don't think it's possible to have a real relationship with somebody if they are constantly drunk, stoned, whatever you want to call it. And there are other types of addictions too, like pornography, video games. I mean, even with adults, I'm sure there are some adults out there that are too involved in that. And even socializing can be an addiction, having to go out all the time. You have to have balance in life. And if you're doing something too often, it affects the relationship adversely. So, there's that. And so temperance, like really understanding the need for temperance, I think that's an important spiritual lesson. Because a lot of times people don't realize that what's really coming in between them and another person is that person's addiction. Or that obsession, if you want to call it something other than a substance abuse problem. If somebody is obsessed with something, even like sports, I didn't even think about that. Sports can be an obsession. And, they joke around and talk about sports widows. Well, it's amazing. I heard some like young couples talking the other day. They were like two couples in their 20s, it seemed like. And the women were talking about the sports as much as the men, and women can totally be into sports. And so maybe, in those relationships, they have something in common. So it wouldn't be like a sports widow. But yeah, having balance is very important in relationships. And if you find that you're fighting with somebody and you don't have like a consistent sense of you're getting along, then that could show you that the relationship is one-dimensional. So the advice is the Page of Cups, and this is about, I think this goes along with the Fool card, if you want to know the truth, Cancer. This is actually connected to Pisces, so it might be advising you that a Pisces person in your life is a really good catch. Also, this connects to children, so it might be a situation of you need to consider your children, especially if you have a sensitive child, which this would be a specific child who is very sensitive. And if you have, let's say you've divorced and your child is reeling from that and you're thinking about the next relationship, it's kind of like maybe making sure that your child is well cared for, and not being neglected emotionally because of your own needs that you're trying to get met. But I find that the Page of Cups is like the Fool, because the Page of Cups is somebody who is totally innocent, okay? The Fool is called the Fool because of their innocence. We can say naivete sometimes, where somebody is too trusting, gullible, believing what people say just right off the bat and not questioning it. But in this case, because it's the advice, it's telling you you need to be more trusting, you need to be more innocent. If you've been through a negative experience, like the Five of Wands may be a very contentious period of time, it may still be affecting you, and it may, if you're not careful, it could cause bitterness where you feel like jaded by love, that it didn't go out, it didn't turn out the way that you wanted. But you have to maintain the innocence of a child at all times and realize that these experiences are happening for a reason, whether it's because you are attracting them because of your particular consciousness, or if it's because, for simple reason of you are just somebody who is, needing to have this, a particular lesson for whatever reason. Don't feel like the victim, don't feel like this was so terrible and that you can't get over it, because you can. And I don't know, based on this reading, there's no way to know what happened in your past that may have caused that, but definitely to embrace the unknown and to just trust in the universe. What is coming in is represented by the Five of Cups. This is that card I was talking about. This is a card of dejection and grieving. So maybe there's something inside of you that needs to come out that is about grieving a loss. Maybe it's finally sinking in. In June, there is a full moon in Capricorn on June 28th, which is your opposite sign, and therefore your opposite house, the 7th house of committed partnership. So that could be an ending of a relationship. But this is not going to be some kind of a thing that comes out of the blue. You are already going through this. This might be the divorce decree. I've had my partner has told me about friends of his, I can think of one in particular, who got the divorce decree, and it was like, okay, the divorce is final, and that caused, some kind of negative reaction just seeing it in print, And my partner was just, kind of commenting to me, that he thought it was silly that people take these things so seriously. Not the breakup, but the official stuff surrounding it. So they take seriously the marriage license or the wedding ring, and they take seriously the divorce decree. When those are just, all of those things are an illusion. Getting married doesn't mean that you will not that the person won't cheat, that you won't cheat, that you will love that person forever. And I wish it did. I wish you could magically do something like that, but you can't. And I really believe that people go into marriages, I'm talking about legal marriages in the whole 9 yards, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for guarantees. And that is just simply not possible in this life of change. And we are changing, we are expanding. That is the purpose of life, in my opinion, as well as some other people's opinions. And so the Fool, what I love so much about the Fool is that the Fool sees life as an adventure. When you're fear-based, you see life as scary. There are all these potential snares. There are all these potential heartaches. And yes, I guess that is true, isn't it? But we have to have faith and the desire to know that we can overcome all of these things, or else we will never even give our hearts away to anyone because we'll be too afraid to. So if you're grieving the loss of something, maybe it's not even something you really want anymore. You may have fallen out of love with a partner and, it's official that you are no longer an item. But it still hurts, and that's okay. Don't deny what you're feeling. Don't wallow in any misery, but don't deny it either. And the outcome is the Ace of Pentacles, and this is a card of new beginnings, but this is the kind of new beginning that a Cancer person loves. That a solid new beginning. These cards are pointing to something that is very exciting and unknown, and living on the edge of your seat, by flying by the I'm trying to say all these metaphors and mixing them up, but you know what I mean. And the Ace of Pentacles could actually be a new relationship with an earth sign, which water is compatible with. So Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, again with the Capricorn. So it might not be with a Capricorn, but there are other earth signs, and you are on the same page with those types of people. So especially if you were involved with a fire sign, for instance, and you couldn't see eye to eye, this type of relationship, whoever it's with, is a relationship that will have firm foundations. And that's right up your alley, Cancer. So I hope you enjoyed this reading, and if you'd like a private reading, the information, the link to my website is below. Have a wonderful month, Cancer. Bye.